Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your own online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify's there to help you grow. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 36% better on average compared to the other leading commerce platforms. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Get a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/promo. Shopify.com/promo.
There is a really weird problem with society. We think failure is bad. Failure is essential. Nothing new is invented without failure. Growth in your capabilities doesn't happen without failure. Our school systems teach you that a pass is good and that a fail is bad. It teaches you nothing about personal growth. We know about the importance of expanding our horizons by leaving what we know and having new experiences. Equally, our comfort zone only grows by stepping out of it. Life isn't easy, and we need to celebrate failure for what it actually means. Failure means that you're on a journey of improvement. You're learning. In fact, I believe that if you succeed at everything you do, you should be scared. You should be terrified. You haven't gone anywhere near your limits and you're wasting your potential. This episode is going to be absolutely epic. It's going to be a masterclass on expanding your comfort zones and celebrating the importance of failure for what it is. A very warm welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast, where listeners don't waste time proving over and over how great they are when they know they could be getting better. Last episode, we learned about the neuroscience of growth mindset and how we build new circuitry in the brain, as well as the important fact that the biggest teacher we have is failure. When we are in those erroneous zones of discomfort, fumbling for balance or answers, our brain is triggered to make new connections and amplify the ones that are working. So I'm really excited to dive much deeper into the concept of failure, building our comfort zones, and we're going to explore 3 strategies that we can use to become more comfortable with failure and overcome fixed mindset limitations that are blocking our growth. I think there's so much value in this area, and I've personally developed a lot of mental models in the area of expanding your comfort zones. I believe we can all become comfortable and even excited by failure with the right perspective. Today, we're going to start with some eye-opening statistics that will really make you question just how you live your life, and then learn about optimizing our rate of growth. And finally, we'll go into how to become excited by the unknown and failure. So, number 1, failure rates. The best things are actually locked behind a lot of failure. I'm going to run through some good examples of where deliberately increasing your failure rate could bring you success. So for example, let's study my podcast. If I reached out to a bunch of guests and every single guest said yes, I wouldn't be having any failures. I wouldn't be putting myself at risk. I wouldn't be worried about rejection. But every person I'm asking, it probably isn't going to be the highest quality guest. If 9 out of 10 guests that I reached out to rejected me, that probably means I'm going for a very high quality guest, like next level Olympians and cool billionaires and stuff. I'm going to have to deal with a lot of rejection and people telling me that I'm not worth their time, but I'm going to have the best set of people that I can bring to you. So in the same way, if you only interview for jobs that you're 100% guaranteed that you know you're going to get, you're probably not going to have an amazing job. Whereas if you aimed for interviews where you think you'd probably fail 90% of the applications, you could be getting like a really high level job. When you look at the world of elite performance, it is full of failure. Roger Federer, for example, is considered one of the greatest tennis players of all time. He won Wimbledon 8 times. And he gave a really great speech recently explaining that he won almost 80% of his 1,500 matches. And that is an incredible success rate. But he asked, what percentage of points do you think he won during those matches? And the answer would really surprise you. If he won 80% of games, you think he's winning a lot of points. But actually, he only won 54% of points. That's right. So the best players in the world lose nearly half of the points that they played. And he reminds us that when you lose nearly every second point on average, you can learn not to dwell on every shot. In fact, Michael Jordan, considered one of the world's most successful basketball players of all time, has incredibly similar advice from an amazing speech he gave. He said, "I've missed over 9,000 shots. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." So some pretty good evidence so far that being comfortable with failing a lot is just a necessary requirement of getting anywhere in life. And of course, there is the famous saying that if you want to become an expert at something, you need to be comfortable being a crappy amateur. And we love to give the appearance that we know what we're doing and that we're good at stuff. But it's the students who aren't afraid to ask the stupid questions that actually learn the most. Or if you are trying to build a startup, for example, and you want to fundraise, a successful fundraise is where you get rejected by 9 out of 10 investors, which means 1 in 10 investor gives you money and you actually have a startup that's going. And if you can face that rejection, then you can raise a lot of money and you can be building a big business. Or equally, if you're an investor who's trying to make returns, investing in the startup space gives much higher returns than any other sector, but it actually has a much higher failure rate. You're going to expect like 99% of your investments to not actually do very well or even fail. And you've got to be comfortable that you're going to lose money on most of them. One of those startups is going to be the next Airbnb and you'll get a 10,000x return there. Your failure rate actually should be really high. And I want you to look at your failure rate in your projects and what you're doing and think that actually a 90 to 99% failure rate is the sweet spot. That's kind of what you want to be aiming at. If you're not failing very much, you could be doing much better. However, don't go too far with this. So something like a lottery ticket has too much of a failure rate. Your chances aren't 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100. They're 1 in 10 million. So you'd need to play once a week for 200,000 years to have a good chance of winning. And that's 2,500 lifetimes, which I don't think you have time for. So you probably don't want to be playing the lottery. If you're serious about having success anytime soon, it's fine to be a dreamer. This is a different subject. And we'll move on to the second subject of expanding your comfort zone through deliberate practice. So we've learned that the size of your success and luck is going to be much higher when we embrace a higher failure rate in terms of our payouts. And equally, personal growth and learning comes tied to failure. So point number 2 is that growth is faster with failure. Failure is a much faster teacher than theory. You could be told endlessly about how to do something. It's only by trying and failing that we will learn. So for example, you could know all the theory about riding a bike or learning to ski or playing the piano, but without actually doing it, you're not going to be any good at it. You will fall over instantly and make a mess. And it's the same with business, for example. So I don't know why people would study business at university when they could have a part-time job and run a part-time business for 3 years and they'd be way more knowledgeable and have a lot more money at the end of it. No offense if you're studying business, but just something to bear in mind. So if you want to learn really quickly at a skill, you want to increase your failure rate. And that's called deliberate practice, where you actually always give yourselves tasks that are outside of your comfort zone and difficult. So for example, when I was young, I didn't get to go skiing until I was 15. And I went on a skiing holiday with my friends who could all ski. And I was really annoyed about being less good than them. So what I did was I challenged myself to fall over at least every half a day, which sounds a bit odd. Basically, it meant that if I'd skied for almost half a day and hadn't fallen over, I had to make myself do something beyond my capabilities, to the point where I actually stretched so far I fell over. So I'd have to ski on one leg until I literally fell over. And I wouldn't just deliberately fall over straight away. I'd try and save myself every time, or try and just ride bigger jumps, try and land them. And it always put me outside of my comfort zone where I was struggling to balance and was just learning to always get better and better as quickly as possible. And by the end of the week, I was actually in the top zone of my school when I was skiing, because I deliberately tried to get as good as I possibly could and spent as much of my time outside of my comfort zone improving. So if you're learning any instrument, for example, you want to always push yourself into the areas that are too difficult for you. And you don't just want to fall into repeating the same things that you just have been doing for years and are easy for you. For example, if you're learning a new piece, you might want to make sure that you can play it 3 times in a row perfectly. You just have to keep on going through all the times that you make a mistake. Just don't try and do it once and just go back to the things that you know after that. You just have to really be very deliberate about setting targets that are hard for you, where you're going to have to go through some difficult moments of falling over, it being difficult, and pushing through. Again, when it comes to learning and growing, look at your failure rate and try and work out something that's suitable for the thing that you're learning that makes sense to give yourself the highest rate of growth. So also with the skiing, I took this too far. I carried on doing this for many years to the point where I actually then got to doing like backflips and things. And I had a very major crash where I broke 3 ribs and thought I was going to die and stuff because I still had this mentality that I needed to fall over a lot. But when you're at that kind of level, you don't want to fall over as much and you need to change your way that you're doing your failure rates and perhaps spend more time practicing on the big like fluffy bags and stuff. So again, be sensible. I was a bit young and excited by everything and hadn't had any major accidents at that point, but it did teach me some important lessons about maturity and where to push on my comfort zones. So it still wasn't a complete failure because I learned, as is the growth mindset principle of there is no such thing as failure if you learn. So back to what deliberate practice is. Deliberate practice is a special type of practice that is purposeful and systematic, whereas regular practice can easily fall into just being mindless repetition. Deliberate practice requires focused attention and is conducted with the specific goal of improving your performance. So the best golfers, actors, podcasters, they break down what they are doing and embrace that there is always improvements to be made. They identify the areas that they could push themselves further in and are happy to fail a lot. So another example, again, from my podcast is that in each interview, I try and ask a question that I feel scared about asking because it pushes me out of my comfort zone every single time. And it leads me to interesting areas. And there's often questions that I've used in that I now ask more regularly. So every interview I go into, I'm always expecting that there could be some failure and I'm less worried about this going wrong because I know something will go wrong somewhere and it's fine. And some really good books that you could use to find out more about deliberate practice are Peak by Anders Ericsson or The Art of Learning by Joshua Waitzkin. And I would really recommend both of them if you want to geek out on this area. We will be moving on to the final third section around how to be excited by failure and really enjoy the moments as they happen after a short break. Steve Jobs once famously said that design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. I've had my Manscaped Lawnmower 5.0 for a while now, and I have to say, it is one of the best designed things I've owned. Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it feels really good to hold. But most importantly, it works so well. I've never been so consistently well shaved in my life because it's so enjoyable and easy to keep everything in trim. You can take it in the shower, it has a light to see what you're doing, the trimmer blades have skin-safe technology so you can feel confident putting it anywhere. So if you could take better care of your body and face hair situation, Manscaped are offering listeners of the show free international shipping and 20% off your order with promo code GROWTH at manscaped.com/growth. Even if you are a customer already, you can grab 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com/growth. Links are in the description. A fun fact is that a bad hire can cost a company up to 30% of the employee's first year earnings. I can tell you that there is nothing like a bad hire for messing up morale. But if you run a small business, you also don't have endless time and resources for hiring, and that's where LinkedIn comes in. I have honestly found their tools the best way to find the right people faster and for free. It isn't just a job board, it is the best known professional network on the planet with over 1 billion members. Each month, 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit another job site, so if you aren't looking on LinkedIn, you're probably looking in the wrong place. In fact, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and 86% of them get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/growth. That is linkedin.com/growth to post your job for free. And like all the best things in life, terms and conditions apply. You can do a lot in 15 minutes, but I think we all know it isn't always enough. And that's something that my sponsor Shortform also knows very well. Some books are just too full of useful information that you can't practically summarize them in just 15 minutes if you truly want to learn much. Short form focuses on knowledge density, and they take as long as it takes to give you the full education on the contents of the world's best non-fiction books. Listeners of the show, that's you, can get a free trial and 20% off an annual subscription at shortform.com/psychology. Link in the description, shortform.com/psychology for a free trial and 20% off an annual subscription. And now finally onto the final topic of this masterclass is learning how to enjoy the actual ride, noticing when you're in an epic fail and just being like really happy and excited, which is hard. But once you get it, it's like you start really appreciating a lot more of your life and you're able to push yourself into these areas which can be more difficult. And I was really lucky when I was younger. I traveled the world when I was 18, 19. And one thing I did was I took a one-way ticket to the Caribbean to meet a guy who had met on the internet. He wanted to sail around the Caribbean and wanted someone to help him out for free. And I was like, yeah, I want to go sailing and like surfing and stuff with you. He sounded super cool. Turns out he was a total weirdo, tried to get me to pay for lots of things I shouldn't have been paying for because it was his boat. He became kind of abusive. I just ran away and I could have called my mum, try and get a ticket home, but I just kind of wanted to be on an adventure. So I was actually pretty happy to be in this weird position and be like, what the hell is going on? I guess I have a story to tell. And I ended up finding a job cleaning yachts in a marina for like a week. And whilst I was doing that, I found a job sailing a different yacht that needed an extra hand. And I got paid pretty well to just go sailing around the Caribbean and being taken to fancy restaurants and clubs with all my expenses paid. And I had the time of my life. And it went from what could have been like a really awful experience, something that I couldn't even have planned for, that was so much better than anything I'd even expected to get. And it's something that definitely taught me to trust a bit more that as long as you don't run away in the moments of panic and failure, that you end up working it out and give yourself the chance to back yourself a bit more. Be more willing to jump in the deep end, trust things happen. When you're in those moments, instead of panicking, you can just appreciate the moment for what it is and be like, okay, I'm going to look back and this is going to be a story. This is like a really interesting moment. I'm just going to take the whole moment in and observe it because this is crazy. And I've had some really bad accidents where I've nearly died and things. And I was like, well, I'm either going to die or I'm going to come out of this and be alive. I don't know what's going to happen in the next hour, but I may as well enjoy the hour rather than just sitting there stressing. Because you're just going to have a shit hour for the rest of your life if that's all you've got left. You may as well enjoy it. And so I was like making jokes and having fun and it ended up working out. I'm still here, but I was able to enjoy these crazy moments. When you have that attitude, it just makes it much easier to lean into things where you're going to fail and have less panic, which then means you're going to do more difficult, scary stuff and it's going to be more of those chances of success. So basically, I think that's a nice way to frame the fact that you can actually enjoy failure. Another similar story when I was traveling, I was in Paraguay and I'd arrived at a hotel on the border with Brazil and we'd had breakfast there and we were going to leave and the manager demanded that we pay for staying the night, even though we hadn't stayed the night. And we were like, yeah, sure, mate. We'll just leave. And then he got really, really angry at us. So we were like, yeah, but we're still going to leave. And then next thing we know, these bars come shutting down. The whole thing goes into like lockdown and we're like, what the hell? And then the police turn up literally 2 minutes later and take us away and they're not being nice to us, hit us and we're thrown in jail and it's escalated crazy fast, hitting us some more and demanding money. And then there's this weird fat guy who takes off his top and he's staring at me. It starts fingering his belly button. And my friend who I'm with looks at me and like, Sam, I think you're going to get raped. And I look at him and I'm like, yeah, I think that I'm the one here getting raped. Can we maybe I'll give them some money? And my friend's like, I think it'll be fine. And half an hour later, it was fine. It could have got worse, but we ended up being let out. We were like, okay, we're probably not going to stay in Paraguay. We left, crossed into Brazil. We were all very all right. And it just felt like I jumped off a balcony from a really high building and hit the floor. But instead of it damaging me, I just bounced and was fine. It was like, wow, everything that I thought could go wrong had gone wrong, but nothing actually went wrong. And it was just a very strange experience that then looking back, I was like, wow, cool. I was able to observe that and not be as stressed as I should have been. So things can work out really well sometimes. And it was an interesting one. And a total tangent, but funny story is a few years ago, I was in Dublin for St. Patrick's Day and a girl comes up to me in a club who, she was quite cute. And I don't normally get approached by cute girls, by the way. I normally have to approach them. But anyway, she asked me who I was. She asked me what my name is and then where I'm from. I asked her where she's from. And she says, oh, no one knows where I'm from. It's just a small country in South America. I'm like, I know South America quite well. And she goes, okay, I'm from Paraguay. And I'm like, well, I was arrested in Paraguay. And she does a bit of a double take, breaks eye contact, and slowly starts dancing away from me. And then I realized that maybe all she knows at this point is that I'm English, I drink alcohol, and I probably have a criminal record in her country, which probably isn't a good sign. What I should actually do is learn to tell people the whole story or none of the story, because saying that you were arrested is actually not the best thing to do when you're in a loud club and you can't give proper context. So again, learning, as always, from my failures, because growth mindset, I've had plenty of other failures, but carried on putting myself out there and now have a wonderful girlfriend I'm very happy with who enjoys my weird stories. And on that note, scary things like talking to women or being arrested, whatever, it works out. So put yourself out there. Just don't do illegal stuff and learn to enjoy the ride. You've only got one life. You may as well make it as interesting as possible. Being put off by fear or failure is a total waste of your life. I really don't want you to do that, which is why I made this episode to just really dive into this and tell you some fun stories about myself. Because I'm only going to have one life, and I've deliberately tried to build thinking models for myself that mean that I can make my life as interesting for me as possible, because I'm going to have to sit here and observe myself living my entire life, literally sitting here and observing my story every day. It's my own duty to make it as interesting as possible for me. And I believe that that's how everyone should live their own lives, because if they've only got one, and you just shouldn't waste it. And that's really part of the whole reason of why I started this podcast. And I hope you really learned something today and that you have a new framework for how you view failure and just less tied down by your fears, more excited for what the world can bring you.
Hello, I'm Vas Christodoulou, and I host the How To Academy podcast, a bi-weekly show exploring big ideas to transform our lives and the world. Our guests include Arthur Brooks on careers, Ruby Wax on mental health, Gabor Mate on trauma, Nicole LePera on healing your relationships, and many more. You'll also hear from iconic artists, politicians, and activists, including Naomi Klein, Gordon Brown, Anna Funder, and a whole host of other very impressive people. That's the How To Academy podcast, available bi-weekly wherever you listen.